Is this what you fought for people to go out there, burn the American flag?
No.
Not fight for our country?
Oh, no, that is what you fought for. You fought for defending the Constitution, free speech. You did fight for that. You literally did. This is the UCLA one. We'll get to that in a second.
Breaking
Let's get
news,
to Michael.
there are Palestinian protests across the United States spreading violent clashes today between police and students at USC and UT Austin, where more than 20 people were arrested. This follows protests at NYU, Brown University, and Columbia University, where an encampment has taken over part of the center of campus. More than 100 have been arrested. In-person classes have been canceled after 8 straight days of demonstrations. I was on that campus earlier today to interview the House Speaker Mike Johnson. This is what I saw and heard. Johnson walked out. There were hundreds of people on the steps where he and other GOP representatives that he had brought along with him and his entourage spoke. They were, and I'm going to show you here, this is my cell phone video, chanting Free Palestine, heckling, booing when Johnson called for the president of the school to resign. They were
He's
not
such a
friendly.
fucking weasel
they couldn't actually
to
hear
do
the
this.
speaker, which I can tell you is a good thing, because much of what he said would have incensed that crowd. And after the press conference, the speaker's team moved us inside into the Columbia Library, where the speaker did interviews. They put that entire space under lockdown because of that large crowd. So here's our conversation right after that, hundreds of people outside when we moved, rushed inside the library, moments after that tense press conference. Speaker Johnson, thanks for your time. Obviously, there's a lot going on in Congress right now. You've chosen to travel to New York, and as you were just out on those steps calling for the resignation of the president of Columbia, there was heckling, there was shouting. That was not a warm reception.
That's so funny. To just hit him with they're booing you. They're booing you to your face. Speaker Johnson, everyone is saying you're dog and you smell awful. What do you have to say to that? And then the immediate cut to the students booing him is so awesome.
She's all, I mean, oh God, he also, one of the Muppets is behind him. One of the old man Muppets, the guys who are in the, you know what I'm talking about?
What, this one?
This lady, yeah.
This lady?
Yeah. You know those two old guys that are in the...
I don't, but you know what's really awesome to me is that like Voice of America and NTD prominently displayed on the microphones, because those are like obviously State Department and psychopathic CIA aligned anti-CCP cult operated NTD. It's great. It's wonderful. This is a cutout from Epoch Times for those of you who don't know, who is a Falun Gong operation. They are anti-miscegenation freaks. A lot of weird opinions. Okay, a lot of awesome opinions, but they're anti-Chinese state. So of course, America loves them.
Enjoy your free speech.
Were you surprised at all by what happened?
Well, there was a sea of students who apparently have been involved in the protest here, and I'm not surprised that they didn't welcome our visit because we're calling out their activities. The point we tried to make today is that this is not who we are as Americans. This is not an expression of the First Amendment. This is not an exchange of ideas. This is threats and intimidation of violence against Jewish students for who they are, for their faith. And that's a terrible trend.
Yeah, dude. Jewish students physically have to defend Israel, like literally. Unconditionally, and that's why it was an inalienable characteristic, which, by the way, I feel like is very anti-Semitic to say. Yeah, the mind of the Jew. It has to be in defense of Israel and its genocide. That's just how it works, and that's precisely what these students were very upset about. Of course, doesn't give a shit about the many Jewish anti-Zionist protesters. Clearly, talking about how it's these Zionists, both Christian and Jewish Zionist students that whose feelings were hurt, and that's really up, which is why the police should kill the students for hurting the feelings of those who defend Israel unconditionally.
Trend that's going on in the country right now. We have these similar types of activities and what are becoming violent protests on campuses around the country.
How are they
and
violent?
Members of Congress.
Yeah. They were violently saying, please put an end to the genocide. There's nothing more violent than...
No,
listen,
he's right, though. He's right. They are violent.
Yeah, he's saying, listen, genocide hits way better when there isn't a in your ear telling you about how unjustifiable it is, okay? And honestly, that is violence. Now, one of my favorite things to hear from right-wing reactionaries is when they become like these bodies in spaces ass woke liberals immediately in defense of Israel, when they're like, silence is violence, complicity is violence. It's like, bro, you're Michael Johnson. You're a rabid, psychopathic, far-right Christian cultist. What do you mean silence is violence? Like, the complicity coming from the institutions that allow these objectively anti-Semitic calls to stop Israel from doing a genocide is unacceptable. Unacceptable.
I believe, have an obligation, a responsibility to speak about this and to demand that it come to an end, because it's not good for us.
Oh, by the way, yeah, as we were speaking, USC canceled their commencement ceremony. They canceled graduation as a you to the students. Guess what, dude? You're not going to go along with Israel doing a genocide? Well, sorry. No main stage commencement for you.
So first they got rid of the valedictorian speaking, right?
Yeah.
And then they canceled any speaking, and now they're just not having graduation at all.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they're like, have fun with that. Sorry. It's class of 2022. No, it's just the photo, man. That's just the photo that they're using. Like, it doesn't, the article is not from 2022. The article is this, like, today, right now. Okay, here, this is USC cancels main stage commencement ceremony, April 25th, 2024. USC announced Thursday that it's canceling its May commencement ceremony, capping a dramatic series of moves that began last week after it informed valedictorian Asna Tabassum, who had been opposed by pro-Israel groups, that she would not be delivering the traditional speech. Media literacy, we just need literacy. True. I think
don't read, guys.
I think this community would benefit. I do feel like constantly saying reading is gay has had caused irreparable harm in this community.
I bring you books every time I come.
I know, and then I make fun of you for it, and here we are. Now people are just like, what? I don't know how to read. What do you mean?
Oh, unrelated but related. I think we raised almost 10 grand yesterday. I don't know what org we're gonna put
from the
with
shirts.
The t-shirts. Yeah. So good job,
Yeah,
guys.
the org is called My Pocket.
It's going straight to me. No.
Yeah, that's right.
You guys tell me where to direct it. I'll direct it there.
Was free Palestine.
I'm gonna pee real quick.
How is that anti-Semitic?
This is great.
Well, what's anti-Semitic is that Hamas endorsed this protest today. Within the last 2 hours, they issued an endorsement statement and heralded the students here and said, this is the next generation of leadership in America.
Let's go.
If you're getting endorsed by Hamas, that's not a good look. It's not a good
back
sign.
up.
Some of these students apparently are unaware of the atrocities of October 7th, or they're denying it. They deny that women and children were brutally raped and murdered, that infants were placed into ovens and cooked alive.
What?
The things that happened there are unspeakable, and yet they're out there
definitively not
waving
true?
flags for the very people who committed those atrocities. This is not who we are.
Speaker, in those early days, I was in
It's like
some
the
of the
babies
booths,
in
you
the,
could smell the death and the bodies. It was horrific. And yet what's happened since has been horrific too. And there's a student here, a PhD student at Columbia. I wanted to quote him. He is Jewish. He has written a testimonial about what's going on here right now, his experience on campus. And he says, I'll read it to you, the most pressing threats to our safety as Jewish students do not come from
Let's
tents
go.
on campus.
Oh, Jonathan,
We should be
I know
focusing on the
Jonathan.
material reality of war.
He's
the
great.
munitions our government is sending to Israel, which kill Palestinians by the thousands, and the Americans participating in the violence.
Yes,
Do you think
yes,
that
Jonathan,
protesting
go off.
the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza,
You guys follow
protesting the
Jonathan on
tens of
Twitter. He's an
thousands of
abolitionist.
innocent
He's
people
really
who
cool.
have died there,
Very smart guy.
is anti-Semitic in and of itself?
I think there's always a place for debate in the free exchange of ideas, but let's not equivocate on what's happening with Hamas and in Gaza. This is a battle, as Netanyahu said, Prime Minister Netanyahu said, between good versus evil, light versus darkness, civilization versus barbarism. This isn't a close call. We have terrorists who preyed upon and attacked viciously and killed many innocent Israelis. And the idea...
Isn't it so easy to be a conservative? I totally get it. It must be nice just like to have the talking points at the ready anytime. I said it must be so nice to be conservative, honestly. They just get to say the same shit, the same bullshit over and over again. He talked about the babies in the ovens.
Yeah, and it's like objectively untrue. Efendim, bilmiyorum ama gelemem şu anda baba. Yeah, I like that he said that
you know Jonathan?
I do not.
He's cool. Yeah, he's cool.
Okay. Yeah, he wrote a dope ass article about being a Jewish student on Columbia campus, where he talked about the threats to our safety as Jewish students do not come from the tents on campus, but I guess from police presence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's based.
Which is very interesting that like Aaron Burnett is doing this though. I think this actually signifies a broader shift in attitude. The fact that like there's any kind of pushback, and I do think that it's because liberal media is always going to be genuinely antagonistic to like open Christian fascism to a certain degree until it becomes the norm, and it's currently still on the boundaries. It's currently still on the edges, and this is why I think like there's this level of pushback, because like this is a right-wing guy, and personally is over here talking about how dangerous it is. Personally, how dangerous it is for Jewish students on campus, and she's saying that that's not the case. However, does she offer pushback to
anti-Semitic?
This is a good question for the record. Hold on, I'm going to run it back again.
Violence. Do you think that protesting the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza, protesting the tens of thousands of innocent people who have died there, is anti-Semitic in and of itself?
I think there's always a place for debate in the free exchange of ideas, but let's not equivocate on what's happening in with Hamas and in Gaza. This is a battle, as Netanyahu said.
Dude, it's so awesome, for me at least, seeing like these guys try to hit the Hasbara talking points in like rapid fire. You notice that it's like always, there's like a little bit of messaging discipline on this, right? But you come across like a moron, like an absolute psychopath when you turn around and you're just like, yeah, well, Prime Minister Netanyahu said like they're fighting good versus evil.
Prime Minister Netanyahu said between good versus evil, light versus darkness, civilization versus barbarism.
Civilization versus barbarism is crazy.
This isn't a close call. Like him channeling that genocidal rhetoric is so hilarious to me, because I don't think that this is going to play well to the broader CNN audience. I don't think that the CNN audience is going to be like, yeah, that's right, it is good versus evil.
In response to a question that's, what do you think about the thousands of dead civilians and murdered civilians? Oh, it's good versus evil.
Yeah, sorry. It's just I am an insane racist.
This isn't a close call. We have terrorists who preyed upon and attacked viciously and killed many innocent Israelis. And the idea that they would be out here in support...
Like, it is pretty funny that he's referencing light versus darkness, which was a tweet that the Israeli government put out.
They
deleted it because even they recognized how villainous they sounded. And here is Michael Johnson months later being like, no, it's light versus darkness. I mean, this is the straight up Nazi shit, by the way. That is just one-to-one Nazi rhetoric.
Of that, Hamas is using civilians as shields for themselves. They put their operations under hospitals and schools. They are using civilians in a theater of war. And so it's difficult. Why would someone blame Israel for trying to stamp out the very terrorist threats that are right?
There's no bottom, right? Like the bottom doesn't exist in terms of what they'll say or what they'll justify.
Hasan, that isn't anything like being a Nazi. Wait, what? Saying that you're the civilizing force against barbarism predates Nazism for sure. It's just old colonial rhetoric. But that is precisely what the Nazis said as well, dumb. A lot of you genuinely think that for someone to do Nazi rhetoric, to do fascist rhetoric, they have to literally be like, okay, dude, take a day off. It's 1:16, brother. It's not even time for the middle of the hour ad break. Like, you're out of your mind.
They're on the doorstep. We should not be dictating to Israel their military strategy. We should be supporting our ally, which is the only stable democracy in the Middle East.
Stable democracy, the best democracy. These are bar for bar lines that you would hear from Israel defenders like 10 years ago. You know what I mean? It doesn't work anymore, man. It doesn't. People know what the going on. They see it. And these guys have not caught up. The talking points have not caught up to the resentment, the understandable, much deserved resentment that even people in the Western world feel against this barbaric monstrosity of a apartheid regime that is currently doing ethnic cleansing. Okay. And it's not like these people, sorry, I was just going to say,
go ahead.
It's not like these people are super pro-Islam or pro-Palestinian lives either. They just think that like the violence has completely gotten out of control. Okay. Go ahead.
I feel like resentment is a nice way to put it, you know? I think it's like justifiable rage and anger.
Yeah.
You know, beyond just feelings of resentment.
Yeah. It's also crazy because he basically said there's always space for open dialogue, but they shouldn't be allowed to because why would anyone be anti-Israel? Exactly. It's ridiculous. It's fucking objectively ridiculous that a very powerful Republican figure who is a Christian Zionist and a Christian fascist separately, even though Zionism is fascism, he's also separately a fascist in general for his own domestic affairs, to sit there and be like, yes, these protesters, these student protesters are peacefully protesting for their college endowments not to go directly in funding Israel's apartheid regime and Israel's genocide, actually have to be violently stamped out. You cannot hate Israel. And then he uses the wokest quotes that he possibly can arrive at. Like he's talking like a 2014 blogger, like a BuzzFeed article writer, in the way that he's defending Israel from microaggressions. Like, I can't believe how much these pro-Palestinian students are actually manspreading and they're mansplaining. Israel is small bean. Israel is a girl. Israel is feminist. They really need to stop with these microaggressions against the students who want to support Israel's genocide. Up.
Israel could do that would be over the line for you? Because when you talk about stamping it out, I mean, many innocent children have died and are dying at Israel's hands and the IDF.
There have been civilians murdered, but that is not the fault of Israel. It's the fault of the terrorists, the Hamas operators and soldiers, the terrorists who have used these people and put them into harm's way. Israel,
harm's way being Israel, the unstoppable force, by the way. Like, we always talk about Israel as though it's like a natural disaster, which it is, but not in the way that he's claiming. I also do like that he accidentally said murdered. Like, children were being murdered, but it's still Israel is not at fault. It's a tsunami. Israel, both small bean, but also very woke, but also doing a genocide, and also that genocide is good because it's Israel and they're fighting against darkness, you know, the dark-skinned Palestinians, the bad guys. That's how I make up my mind on these issues. That's awesome.
Just pure evil. Just pure evil, that's all.
Yeah.
Doing its very best to prevent civilian casualties. But this is a war, and they're fighting for their very existence, and they are not the aggressors. It is the other side. Some of the people here seem not to understand that, and I think that's a real problem. We can debate the merits of all these things, but what they're doing here is intimidating Jewish students. That's the thing that is so problematic.
All right, so let me ask you about that, because when it comes to...
He said it's problematic.
Yeah, he did.
This is what I mean. These guys are like, every single one of these, like, I love free speech. Free speech means, you know, hate speech is protected. Every single one of them turn into like BuzzFeed article heads, dude.
Y'all, this ain't it.
Yeah. Silence is violence. Your complicity in saying Israel is bad is actually a major microaggression towards Jewish students. Everyone is a liberal at the end of the day, as I've tried to explain to many of you. This is yet another perfect, obvious example of this phenomenon.
That the NYPD, at least as of Monday, have said they've not received a single call from Columbia University of reports of any physical harm.
Well,
it's like, nobody even called the cops. What's up with that? What's going on? It's just they're too afraid. They think cops are Hamas. They think NYPD is also in the pocket of Hamas, even though they train with the IDF and have a branch in Tel Aviv, as a matter of fact. But they're also Hamas. As a matter of fact, IDF is Hamas. Everyone is Hamas.
No physical harm.
Right, but you have to speak to these Jewish students who are in fear of their lives, who are cowering in their apartments right now, who are not coming to class. In fact, the administration recognized the threat was so great, they canceled classes. Now,
yeah, totally, dude. Yeah, we literally have to think about the fifis of people who claim that they're in fear of their safety because they want to go out and be like, I love Israel, f you guys, we should be able to do a genocide. We have to center the conversation around those guys, okay? We just have to. Now, if you're confused as to why this rhetoric is so, why this rhetoric seems so comfortable for a right-wing reactionary Christian dude to engage with, it's because that's precisely the same exact perpetual victimhood that white nationalists engage with on a daily basis. They are also identitarians, as you know, white identitarians. They also do their own form of social justice. It's just they're social injustice warriors. That is precisely the reason why it's so easy for Mike Johnson to turn around and be like, yeah, these guys are actually doing a microaggression. These guys are actually not centering the feelings of defenders of Israel. That's what's going on here. And they've done it over and over and over again.
they've come out with this hybrid idea. Well, if you're Jewish, maybe you do want to stay at home. Maybe it'd be better off for you. It is so discriminatory. It's so wrong in every way. The responsibility of a university administrator is to keep peace on campus and ensure the safety of students. Job number one. If they're incapable of doing that, then you need different leadership. I think this is time for a really strong hand.
I'm trying to understand, though, why, as Speaker of the House, this is an issue you would want to get involved with. It's a private university. It's an issue happening here. Why is this something that you are choosing to get involved in and calling for the removal of a president of a private university?
Well, they receive federal funding as well, and Congress is looking at all of these aspects to determine how they're using those funds. Is that appropriate? If they can't fulfill their basic obligations, I don't think the American taxpayers want to be funding this kind of thing. We know that professors are engaging in this as well. Some of the professors, some have been supporting.
We should kill them as well. We should, dude, kill everyone that says Israel is in the wrong. Please, please, we have to kill them. You guys don't understand. We have to arrest them, arrest all of them. How dare they say this? How dare they say this? I'm so upset. I'm so mad right now. We have to take physical action against these guys immediately. Awesome. You were about to say something, I think. Go ahead.
No,
say
it's okay.
it.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Not the right time.
Okay.
Supportive of the Jewish students, but I believe it's a small subset, for what I've told. They've allowed this to go on, and it is not okay with the American people. This isn't a partisan issue. This is about right and wrong, and we got to call it for what it is.
That's fucking crazy, dude.
People talk about genocide and say that Israel is engaging in genocide.
It is pretty funny that he's like talking about federal funding going to these institutions after, you know, earlier today, like a couple hours after this conversation, Brandon signed a bill that gave $28 billion to Israel so that it could conduct its genocidal affairs. The fact that we're talking about like American people deserve to cut funding to Columbia University because they allowed some of the students to set up an encampment without killing them.
Students who pay tuition.
Yeah, students who pay tuition, exactly, is ridiculous. These motherfuckers do not have a leg to stand on, okay? Just nothing. Nothing. Oh.
Do you think that that is a legitimate conversation that they should be allowed to have as part of First Amendment rights?
No.
Well, of course. Look, I was a First Amendment lawyer for 20 years. I went
Not
into
a good
courts
one.
and
Holy
defended
shit.
our First Amendment freedoms, religious expression, the right of free speech on campus. I litigated those cases. Of course, the university is supposed to be the free marketplace of ideas. But when you shout down and physically threaten with intimidation and threats of violence the other side, that is not
Yeah, except what do you have to say to the fact that that's not happening was basically what Aaron Burnett said. And he was like, well, this is a war against darkness. You know, we have to kill them all. So I don't know what you're talking about there.
Yeah, but what about Shai? You're not remembering Shai.
Oh, true. Shai Davide. The number one victim of this all is Shai Davide, whose feelings are hurt.
a peaceful expression and a peaceful exchange of ideas. That's something very different, and that's what we're saying they need to get control of. When they camp out around the campus and they prevent students from exercising their rights, that's the problem.
Before you go, obviously we're here in New York as there's been threats to your speakership back in Washington. What does it say about your standing as speaker that you are here at Columbia University dealing with this issue right now?
Isn't that funny? He's just like, I've talked about the monopoly of violence being in the hands of the state quite a bit, as you guys know. And the way that we analyze violence is never, the way we see violence is not when the state does it. We are so conditioned to think that that's like not a violent outcome or a violent action in general, but instead what is expected. right? So he's over here genuinely advocating as a member of the state for the violent organs of the state to violently stamp out the students' First Amendment rights that are supposed to be protected by the Constitution. That's not violent statements, though, because he's just demanding more of the state violence that we take for granted, that we think is perfectly permissible, perfectly normal. It's actually the students saying, don't do a genocide, that are objectively violent in his eyes, which is ridiculous. Ridiculous.
The Speaker of the House has a very important constitutional responsibility. It's an officer listed in the Constitution. The Speaker speaks for the House of Representatives, and I felt it was very important for that voice to be heard, not just about what happens at Columbia.
Why are you avoiding good questions and only focus on the deranged ones? Wait, what do you mean? Are you talking to me? What good questions am I avoiding and focusing only on the deranged ones? What has Michael Johnson said here that wasn't objectively deranged? No, don't pay attention to her. She's being a baby right now. Can you please repeat your vision as to how next action is proceed in Gaza without fantasy but realistic practical goals? What the does that have to do with college protests right now? I have described this a million times over, but what does that have to do with this? You came in here and said that there were good questions being presented that I was avoiding. What do you mean? Go watch a million different videos I've cut on the subject matter, okay?
About what is happening right now around the country. And we have to stand unequivocally for the right and the good. And I'm calling on all my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to speak out against this. Yeah, both sides.
Both sides.
Both sides got to speak out against what? The students protesting?
Now let's bring Lawrence, who is in Pennsylvania, a swing state. It's neck and neck in that state between Biden and Donald Trump. And the governor of your state, where you grew up, down in Texas, Lawrence, says the pro-Palestinian protesters in Austin, they need to be in jail. He said anti-Semitism will not be tolerated in Texas.
Well, it's clear where some of these people stand. When you start putting pro-Hamas stuff in the state of Texas, I mean, good luck, because the Texas state troopers, they're just not going to deal with it. We saw what can happen if you have a governor that believes in law and order, and that's what you're seeing there. I hope other governors follow suit like Texas. I'm a little biased, obviously. We got a table full of veterans.
What?
Hey, listen up. Listen
Is he a
up.
veteran?
We got a table full of veterans. I'm going to ask them how they feel about what's happening.
Like this guy, bro. Yeah. Yeah, let me hear what this guy has to say about. He's like,
he's a Confederate soldier.
Bro, this dude literally this dude has been alive for much longer than Israel has existed. Okay? Get out of here.
When you see these pro-Hamas protesters on college campuses, what do you
That guy is just confused why a black man has a microphone. Okay? Like he's old enough to remember the abolition of slavery. Okay? You're like talking to Alzheimer's patients and being like, yep, that's right, Hamas.
you think?
They should be expelled, the ones that are the kids in school. Any come over on a foreign visa should be expelled. They should be deported. And
Can't
the
believe Rob
agitators
Reiner
should
is
be
saying
not
this.
only arrested, but prosecuted and given time. It's the only thing that'll stop this. They got to pay for it.
Thank you so much. Sir, what about you? I'm going to ask Nate the Great to swoop around a little bit. Tell me, what do you think about these protesters being all across the country? They say they're protesters, but they say the same thing as terrorist organizations.
They are a terrorist organization. They self-proclaimed. Every one of them, you talk to them.
Self-proclaimed. They're like, yeah, Hamas is like, we love doing terror. We are a terrorist organization.
You hear them on the news, you hear them on the radio and on your channel, because you don't hear them on the other channels. Okay? It's just a one-sided thing, but they're all nasty, nasty people. They got nothing better to do with their life than to say that. And that.
It is pretty cool to have this many old white guys and not have a single one of them say a slur, though. That's like,
we've made so much progress.
yeah, that's a respectable feat, I think. At least they're cognizant that there's cameras around.
That's it's so disgusting. I'm sorry.
No, thank you so much for your service.
He's too emotional.
Right here. Tell me about, is this what you fought for people to go out there, burn the American flag?
No.
Not fight for our country.
Oh, no, that is what you fought for. You fought for defending the Constitution, free speech. You did fight for that. You literally did. You're an idiot.
No.
I can't believe how Stupid Fox News is.
I believe in the First Amendment. However, there's constraints, and the people that are protesting are terrorists, in my opinion.
That's fucking crazy, dude.
They shouldn't be allowed to.
I believe in the First Amendment, but there's limitations of the First Amendment, which is, you know, things that I think are up and wrong. You shouldn't do those things.
I shouldn't hear. You have a right to say something outside of where I can hear it ever.
Yeah, that's awesome.
To do that. And law enforcement is restrained also. I have no idea why. Why?
Why is
why aren't they killing them? Why aren't they killing them yet?
Election Zone, awesome. Speak over veterans. How about you speak over the top of the hour ad break, bitch? Don't even try me with this Election Zone, because at the top of the hour, there is a constraint to the free speech, okay? For those of you who are not subscribed for $5 or for free. The limitation is you will not see the broadcast uninterrupted. You will see ads instead. Cab Calloway, thank you for the 5 gifted subs, allowing 5 people to not be limited in their recognition of the free speech that's going on. Here's the 3-minute ad break now.
Say excuse me.
No.
Oh, you did it again.
Yeah.
That's so rude. In
That
front
was
of
my
25,000 people, you did that too.
Yeah.
Wow.
And guys, if I could, one last gentleman over here on the side, I'm gonna loop around, run real quickly. I think he deserves a run because he fought for our country, World War II veteran, one of our last living.
Oh,
George, I'm gonna turn you around. When you hear, yeah, George, when you see all these,
He's kind of dripped up.
Yeah.
I like this guy. I mean, I don't know what he's about to say, but I like him regardless.
Crazy.
Protesting, they say they express their hate for the Jewish community. They stand with Hamas. They have Hezbollah flags. What runs through your mind? Is this something that you fought for?
They're a disgrace to the United States and America. Burning flags, talking against the country. If they're not happy here, let them deport them like anybody else if they're not an American. It's a shame and a disgrace.
We should put up a caps and kill them.
These veterans died and got injured and everything else, so they can.
He was posted up at a
protest
Japanese
against the United
internment
States
camp.
of American burn flags and everything else. It's a total disgrace.
George, thank you so much for your service. Let's give it up for our veterans in here. We got a big group of them. Hey guys, I'll send it back to you in New York.
No. Now that I know, now that I heard from a guy who's like shitting in his diapers as we speak, my opinion on this has changed. Yeah, I no longer believe that you should be able to burn the flag. I no longer believe in the First Amendment. Thank you.